Things at home, things abroad. World attention is riveted this week on the U.S. financial crisis, including the issue of moral hazard. Dating to the 1600s and often associated with insurance, moral hazard is defined as a situation where individuals or institutions do not bear the full cost of their actions and consequently may take more or greater risks, often leaving another party to bear some responsibility for their decisions. Ex ante moral hazard arises when an insured party takes greater risks. For example, a car owner with theft insurance may be less careful locking his car if he thinks insurance will pay if the car is stolen. Ex post moral hazard arises when an incident occurs and an insured party seeks more goods or services than they would have had they not been insured. For example, some might forego an expensive surgical procedure if they were paying for it themselves, but elect it if insurance pays. A popular example of moral hazard comes from the American League 1973 designated hitter rule. Economists hypothesized that, quote, because they are not required to appear at the plate, American League pitchers can throw at opposing hitters with greater impunity, that is, at a lower cost than National League pitchers who must take their turn at bat. In fact, I have a scholarly article by 3 economists that says, quote, American League batters have been hit by pitches 10 to 15% more frequently than National League batters since the designated hitter rule was introduced, evidence consistent with a classic moral hazard problem. Financial moral hazard came front and center this past Friday when the U.S. government, as we have all been reading, refused to bail out deeply troubled Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, or American International Group, AIG. This surprised many because the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve had recently, of course, stepped in to facilitate the sale of Bear Stearns and to take into conservatorship affordable housing giants Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Yesterday, as we've all seen, the U.S. government maintained its no moral hazard resolve, but tried to calm financial markets through 2 actions. First, the Fed, in a unanimous vote, left the key federal funds interest rate unchanged at 2%. And second, the U.S. government extended an $85 billion bailout loan to AIG for 79.9% equity stake in the company, whose market value has shrunk from $170 billion a year ago to $10 billion today, but whose derivatives and other financial involvements affect 130 countries. The American financial landscape is dramatically altered with the loss of these venerable, iconic institutions. Founded in 1850, Lehman Brothers had a 158-year institutional history, Merrill Lynch a 96-year institutional history, and Bear Stearns an 85-year history. Collectively, the 6 troubled institutions were responsible at one point for $4.698 trillion in assets and 230,936 employees. How did we get to today? Many trace the prelude to subprime crisis to the year 2000, when Federal Reserve interest rate cuts spur an unprecedented number of mortgage originations. Lowered borrowing costs and loosened standards opened the way for many new homebuyers, some of whom did not initially qualify for home mortgages. Real home prices skyrocket. By 2006, subprime and so-called Alt-A low documentation loans become a significant percentage of total mortgage originations. As Elder Hales pointed out, buyers, sellers, brokers, lenders, underwriters, investors all play a moral hazard game of slicing, dicing, packaging, relaxing standards, and passing risk to someone else while speculating on prices and taking handsome fees, even as home price appreciation plateaus or turns downward. In September 2007, meltdown begins. The top 25 lenders, names we know such as HSBC Finance, New Century, Countrywide Financial, begin hemorrhaging on some $543 billion in tainted loans. 2008 to date, over $450 billion of subprime-related write-downs have been announced, with more anticipated. Coincidentally, I was in New York yesterday for a financial futures forum, and if you'll allow me, would share 3 brief observations on things that reminded me deeply that we have some commotion but no need for fear. First, though not a member of the church, a friend summarized the situation essentially by quoting the Book of Mormon. He said, quote, "Fear always follows greed. We had greed, and now we have fear, but things will right themselves until greed sets in again." Second, serene and happy was Amraj Singh, the cab driver from the Punjab in India with whom I rode in from JFK. He's worked the last 14 years basically every day to support his parents, brother, and sister, and now he's preparing to return home this December. Now 30, he smiles shyly and says, "It is now my turn to marry and have a family." He is of the Sikh religion, but I tell him families can be forever. He smiles. He says he believes so too. And finally, the perfect response to what might be called the moral agency moral hazard. For we know that it is by grace that we are saved, after all we can do. Today's update. Comments or questions?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting.
Well done. You didn't untangle it.
I'm not sure it'll untangle easily. But isn't it interesting that life goes on for most people despite this commotion at the top?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.